From in the beginning to the musical apocalypse, this is The Bible Says What? I'm your host, Mike Wiseman. I do not find it just or righteous to save Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the furnace in Daniel 3 because of their trust in Yahweh, but choose to stand by and watch as countless Jews, his favorite people, are starved, tortured, and led to their deaths. I do not find it just or righteous to slaughter the innocent for any reason, especially as a form of mandatory sacrificial apology. I do not find it loving or logical to punish children out of jealousy. I do not find it good or healthy to worship a documented child killer who demands love and praise and complete devotion. But that's just my opinion. Let's start the show.
Is there anything in the Bible that you yourself have an issue with?
A divine blast.
Actually enjoyed arguing with me and stuff.
God doesn't kill children.
What do you think the Passover was? Are you reading a different Bible?
No.
You worship him because of the things he's done. Why can I not judge him because of the things he's done?
Obey me or I'll kill your kids. It doesn't seem very
well, that's brutal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man, what a tough life.
Today's special guest is Christian author and entrepreneur, Amy Rose Herrick. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Oh, it's good to be here. Gonna have a good time.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for agreeing to be on the shows. Great. Thanks for taking the time. So I kind of wanted to jump right into your book. I noticed you had one called not Saved by Faith, Pack Faith First. That's what it was.
Yeah,
Pack
right.
Faith First. Tell us a little bit about that book.
Well, I have been fortunate enough that I lived in Kansas most of my life, and we had an opportunity to do a complete life do-over. Everybody talks about it, but we actually did it. And we moved from Kansas to the U.S. Virgin Islands, where we knew no one, had no family, sold everything, gave it away, started over. And that was the premise 10 years later to look back over the things that have happened. And it's entitled Pack Faith First, Suitcases Second, a decade of miracles over 50. So I've given away my age.
Right off the bat, man. Right off the bat.
Let's get that out of the way.
Fun. How'd that work out for you? Everything turn out okay?
I was very surprised. We all know some Michener, and there's all kinds of authors that you'll know that are huge, but I was very surprised. The young lady that helped me launch and do some other things called me and said, "Are you watching this?" And I said, "No, I'm really not." She had me stop at 11 o'clock at night and look, and we made #1 bestseller within hours of it coming out, which wasn't another huge blessing for me. Those huge, now, folks, you need to know those rankings change quick.
Yeah,
but,
they do.
That was
sure.
Absolutely astounding.
Yeah, that's always fun. Yeah, I was #1 for about 14 minutes. I think it was. It was awesome. Yeah, it just went away. It was cool.
But
it's still cool.
Here's the hard part. If any of you are authors or you're thinking about being an author, when you reach the #1 spot, there is only one place to go from there, and believe me, it is below that number.
That's take a screenshot so you can have it forever. That's what I recommend.
Yeah, but it's the same as running a marathon or anything else.
Sure.
After first, there's only one. There's lower numbers thereafter.
That's for sure. So what inspired you to write the book?
It had been brewing for a little while. I've written other books that are not on the religious nature. And with that, there were so many things that had happened to us that were not coincidence and that had come through, and people had heard parts of our story, but they had not really heard the entire story. So I picked out several snippets and put it in, and I had people that would say, "I knew about that, but I had no idea about all of the rest of this." So it was meant to be an encouragement. It doesn't matter what your faith is or whether you have faith or not, but just to be an encouragement.
Yeah, well, people do need encouragement for sure. So what was the biggest thing for you that happened during this whole transition that showed you that God was actually helping you out?
It was a constant issue of things of saying, now, I don't know about the rest of you, but well, if this is really what you want me to do, I need X. Well, then it would be manifested. It would be provided. Well, if you were really, really sure, because understand that ours started with a word of knowledge, which we'd never had before. And I looked at my husband and said, we're going to be living somewhere with a beach by the end of the year, which was so preposterous with a life in Kansas. And the wheels started turning and things happened very, very quickly. And we were within a year living on a beach, and we had disposed of a house that we never put up for sale that came to us. Everything just kept falling in place. And we did a life do-over and made the decision that no matter how it worked out, we were never going to regret giving it a try. But we would always regret never trying it. So when we said, true. Packed faith first, we didn't know anybody, no jobs, no nothing, but we knew we were led to go there, and we know we're supposed to be there.
You never know till you try, but sometimes you probably should just not try. For sure. That's awesome that it worked out for you, for sure. But I mean, I see that not work out for everybody though. What just you probably don't know the answer, but I'm just going to throw it out there anyways. Why do you think it works for some and not for everybody else?
I think part of it goes back, and this is just me, I think part of it goes back to what is your motivation for doing it, and what are your expectations? There are times, and I live on an island in the Caribbean, I live on St. Croix, and we have a lot of individuals that come and go. And if you expect it to be wherever you came from, you're going to be disappointed. And if you are not willing to embrace whatever the new normal is, it can be very difficult, cause a lot of different conflicts. And so I think it goes along with a couple of things I've learned over time. And one of my statements is, life happens, not the way you expect it to. It happens anyway. And sometimes it's the way you. Now, have you ever had to embrace some things you didn't like?
Well, yeah, we've all had a job we didn't really care for. We had to stick it out and just do the job.
Yeah. Sometimes in life you have to embrace things that you don't like or you never expected. But I think it's how you choose to deal with it after that makes the biggest difference in you and the people around you.
True to a point. I mean, if you got a situation you're bad at, like the job, switch jobs. Don't sit there and suffer for no reason. You can obviously there's certain situations where you can't get out of it 100%. But if you can get out of that bad situation, speaking to you, John, or whoever.
Yeah. And your attitude is everything. I think sometimes we all go through rough spots. There's no question. My life's not been, all roses, petals thrown at my feet all the time. Of course not.
Yeah, no, it's a mixed bag of things, right? Yeah, for sure. You can't always be.
It very much is.
Yeah.
But how do you do each step? Okay, well, and we joke about things are a season. Right now I'm in the Midwest. We've lost all of the leaves on the trees. We're at the very, very tail end of fall. We're going into winter. I don't see any season in a person's life lasts forever, but some seem long, some are a little shorter, but the season will end one way or the other. It will end.
Yeah. This too shall pass. I think that was Land Before Time. Great story. So when it doesn't work, now I'm going to go a little dark here for a second, then we'll get off of it real quick. But when it doesn't work, like I've talked to pastors who have had children suffer for their whole lives and then die. They have church praying for them. They have the pastors praying for them. The community's praying for them, but that child still suffers and dies. Not only does the child have to suffer, but the parents suffer, the community suffers, everybody's suffering because this one child. So yeah, it's great that it worked for you, but it doesn't always work. And that inconsistency is where I have the issue. But we're going to go back to the Bible here, and with a faith part. Faith in the Bible is Hebrews 11:1, the things unseen. Is belief in things unseen. Is that something you ascribe to, or is your word for faith a little bit different? Because everybody has their own definition, essentially.
I think every human being operates with some level of faith. I just think some individuals exercises at a higher level. And I say that because you and I had faith when we booked this appointment that we would both be here. Most of us have faith that we are going to have air to breathe.
Well, how are you defining
there
faith,
are
though?
things you take for granted that are still tied in a faith.
Well, how are you
And
defining the word?
On faith, I think faith is probably something that you carry within for an expectation of something to come.
So faith
that has
to you
not been manifested,
uh-huh.
hasn't been manifested, but there is an expectation that it will come.
Is there evidence behind this expectation?
I would say my yesterdays.
So yeah,
there are many things that have manifested. So if I look at the odds of what all has happened yesterday, the odds are pretty good. Most things will happen in the future. Not all, because, I think faith and prayer are sometimes tied together. Not all prayers are answered the way that you anticipate they will be answered. It doesn't mean they weren't answered. They may not have been answered the way you requested.
Well, prayer in itself is kind of, don't take offense, obviously, but it's kind of pointless to me when Yahweh God knows everything ahead of time and has your best interest at heart. So why would he want you to ask when he already knows? And then if you ask, he's going to do whatever he wants anyways. His will be done. So, I mean, the whole prayer thing seems very pointless to me.
And that's you, but there are other ways that sometimes prayer doesn't always change the situation the way you would have anticipated. But sometimes prayer can change you, and it also can change your focus because, for instance, if a person chooses to pray for others, they are recognizing that there are needs that over and above what they have in their own lives.
Okay.
So I think prayer isn't just in the asking. I think at times prayer is a method to recognize that it's not always just about you.
Wow.
There are other needs, and it is a way to have a conversation that you may not have with anyone else around you, but it's a conversation that you can have.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I use my brain to do that. I can see a homeless guy in the street. Well, I see he's got an issue. He needs food, he needs money, he needs shelter, water, anything like that. I can see that. I don't need prayer to recognize somebody else's issue. I think it's kind of an interesting point of view to do that. As far as the Bible goes, are you a Bible believer 100%? Do you take the faith on it? How does that work for you?
I believe the Bible. I will tell you that I also believe that we have words that are written down by men, maybe women. We don't know. They usually just call them scribes, so we think they're mostly men. And over the years, those things were translated from one language to another. So I believe that whatever the original text was, it's entirely possible that some things in the translation and the moving through the different languages may have different wording. They may have little meanings. I also don't know if we actually have all the books of the Bible, because they continue to find scrolls, they find different things. So do we have the entire what was to be written down? I don't know that. I do know that we have some, but in your life, has anybody ever written down every move you've made, every word, everything that you've done, so that we have this, huge library of just you? And so I think we have, snippets or chapters, and it's kind of like watching people that might walk by in the grocery store. You may see a little bit of that, but you are not seeing the entire thing. So I don't know that we would ever have written down everything that happened, but I believe that we have pieces of what occurred.
Roger.
And not being negative, some of my, different ones of faith will have different opinions, but, even when things are compiled, you have a choice of what is put down and what is included in a work. If an author writes a book or, you're telling a story, you often choose the components that are put in and what is left out. And that's why I say I don't always know that we have every story perfectly.
Right.
But I believe that we have segments of many different stories. Interesting
way to look at it. For sure, we don't even have the originals. So I mean, we don't even know how it began. These stories began. Yeah. We can hypothesize and guess and speculate and whatnot, but we don't really know. And at the end of the day, we have no idea. Yeah.
We don't. And if I take if I really stretch, I believe from what history has told us, that Alexandria had a phenomenal library. Do we know what was in that library?
We may
The
never
answer is
know.
no. Is it lost to history forever?
Mm.
So there could have been not only medical, mechanical, astronomical, biblical. Nobody knows what all was in that particular library that was lost to history. It didn't mean that it didn't exist at some point. It just means it is lost. And that's maybe a real far out stretch for some people to think of.
Yeah.
But I think we have probably lost more history than we have ever retained.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of ignorance out there trying to destroy history and past and whatnot. Some people don't like what they hear, so they destroy it. You know, Christians went through, you know, in the old days, destroying things that didn't agree with their dogma and whatnot. So I mean, 100%. It's sad how much stuff we've probably lost throughout the centuries. So Bible, not 100% true in your mind. There's some flaws in there, correct? I don't want to speak for you. But...
I believe the intent of the Bible was to be 100% true. However, whether we have 100% of the translation, every detail in the story to this point, because of translations, maybe not. I believe the intent was to be 100% true, but not having seen the original books and knowing that every word is precise and every story is completely told, you know, when a page or two of a manuscript was lost. And I think in many cases, the parables, stories, different things that have been told are examples, but they were also examples for the time. And if you were to write examples with the same type of parables today, they may look very different. And what would have been common knowledge for that time in history, phrases, words,
of course,
customs,
context.
It's going to be hard for us to comprehend because we're so removed from that.
Right. That's why we have historians and librarians and scholars and all that fun stuff, for sure, that look into it and help us out, help us understand it, because it's very confusing, for sure, especially if you don't study it for your whole life. So
well, but even if you study it, you know, and there are some, you know, even if you study it and you try to go back to the original text to try to translate the meaning of that word in that point in history, and then you may look at an amplified version, which is someone else's opinion of what this said. And you could study several different directions off of a same scripture or chapter.
Educated
but
guesses.
Again, you're looking at different ways that that's being interpreted.
Absolutely. Everybody's got their own interpretation. Educated guesses is the best way to go around it. And then you get to look into biases. Is this person using their biases to decipher this? All kinds of problems with it. So now that we've taken care of that issue, is there anything in there that you have a problem with? Is there anything in the Bible that you have an issue with?
I think I look more along the idea of, I don't always have to like history. I don't always have to like things that are presented. It doesn't mean that they are not true. I think one of the things, if I said what I didn't like, what I didn't like when years and years ago as a child, as I read through, is when we went through the chapters where this one begat that one, who begat that one, who begat that one, who begat that one.
Terrible
because
verses.
At this point, yeah, you know, at this point, that family tree is not relevant to me.
Right.
And it isn't the way that we do things now.
Right.
But, you know, for someone else at that time, that was very relevant. So I didn't like reading all of the begats and begats because I just and I
Very
couldn't
few
pronounce
people.
the names. Okay,
Yeah, that too.
I couldn't do the names.
So true. So true. Yeah, no, very few people, I'm sure, love those chapters. But as far as the Bible, is there any part that you find more true than another part, like the resurrection of Jesus, for instance? Do you think that actually happened? Do you think he had to die for the sins of people? Those kinds of stories, are those accurate, true, contextual? I
believe they're true. I think that is part of the basis of my faith. And along with that, do I believe that there is an afterlife? The answer for me is yes. Someone else could decide to believe differently. And one of the things that I feel that we have all been given, and it doesn't matter where you reside on Earth at this point, because we'll focus it down out of the universe to just Earth. I think we were all given the ability to have our own mind and our own ability to think and to work out some answers. But you will indeed be shaped by your environment and the information you have access to.
True.
And if you've never heard about the gospel, you've never heard about the gospel. That does not mean you may not have a belief of a higher power. It may not just be in the gospels. And I have an American Indian ancestry. So there are different things that still tie in with creation story and everything else, but that's unique to me. So I will have a little different perspective on some of those. But before the missionaries ever showed up or any of that, they still believed in the Great Father. How? I don't know, but they did.
They still believed in a lot of nature spirits and stuff like that as well. And I'm sure they still do. I wouldn't know because I don't really know any Native Americans or have talked to one. So I've talked to plenty of them, but never about their religion.
Like I said, yeah, well, look at this. All right, audience. Do you know what a citizen Potawatomi looks like? Now you do.
No. So
yes,
why do you
all live in teepees? We do not all live in teepees. There are different, and kind of like your family tree, you did not pick your ancestors. I didn't get to pick my ancestors, and I didn't pick who they married. So over the years, just like every other family, you may have married with other groups or other races or whatever. But for today, if you have never seen a citizen Potawatomi, I am your example. But not everybody looks like me, just like not everybody in your family looks like you.
Yeah. So a little bit off here. I wanted to go back to the why you believe it. Let's shoot for the resurrection of Jesus. Why do you believe that particular event happened?
I believe that particular event happened because I believe that I have a relationship with my Father, and as a part of that, the transformation, I know the difference for me from with it or without it. And that is something that, based on the information that I've been given, based upon my inner and based upon the relationship and feeling for me, I believe that to be true. Someone else may not have that relationship, may not have that experience, and for them, they may not feel that it is true. Now, which one of us is right? I guess we'll eventually find out, or not.
Well, the I don't know would probably be a really good answer there. But, man, holy cow. So is it a feeling that you know it happened? So you have a relationship with Yahweh or Jesus, all of the above. And because of this relationship, you know that Jesus rose from the dead. Am I getting it right?
Well, some of it has been what has been taught and what is historically recorded. And
no
at this
historical.
Point, we could look.
There are no historical records of Jesus' resurrection, except for the Bible, and that's not even historically an accurate book.
All right. Oh, what this? Well,
okay.
Based on your opinion, and yet watch this. This is one of the greatest diffuser
facts. Based on facts. There's no historical record of Jesus' resurrection. That's a fact.
You could
not
be
my
right.
opinion. Yeah. So go ahead. Right. But besides that, it was Yahweh giving you a feeling or something that you believe it.
I have looked at other things, and I would say at times the implausible is probably the most plausible. And for me, I believe that to be true.
That's risky. We can't always do that. The implausible is definitely not always plausible. It doesn't make no. I mean, if this book fell down, which has fallen down many times before in the middle of interviews, I'm not going to suspect that the Invisible Man, Kevin Bacon, as the Invisible Man, is coming in and knocking it over. I don't think that's happening. I'm not going to take the impossible as that option there. Or I don't know how the universe came into. I have no idea how we all got here. I'm not going to insert the implausible just to make it work. I mean,
Well, but
that's
also,
an infinite amount of possibilities at that point.
But you hit on a really great point. I don't know how I got here in the universe. I personally do not believe that I evolved out of some slime crawling out of the ocean, and that I've got a fish as a cousin, and I've got a tree over here somewhere, and then there's a duck-billed platypus. He must be the weird uncle or something.
Have you studied evolution
I don't believe
before?
that.
Have you studied evolution though?
I studied some, and I look at it, and I do not believe it is plausible that we came from slime. That to me is not plausible. And I look at our being, and I look at the way it functions and how it is created, how it is made, how it works. And at this point, I do not feel that our life form is an accident. That is my own personal belief. I do not, because at this point, science has been able to clone, everything from sheep to different horses, whatever they've been able to clone, but science has never been able to create life as you and I look at it. And as a being, they may be able to copy, but as far as being able to create, and I do not think creating a robot or creating AI or something like that
I understand what you're
falls in
saying.
that same category as living.
Right, but just because we haven't been able to do it yet doesn't mean God did it. That's the problem there, is inserting the improbable instead of waiting to figure it out. Like, I have no idea how my cell phone works. I have no clue, but there is somebody out there who has figured it out, figured all this stuff out. It's different. It's completely different from knowing something to inserting something, to not knowing something to just asserting something. You know what I mean? It's a bit different there. And as far as evolution goes, we can see it actually happening with viruses. Our flu changes every year. That's why we need a new vaccine. That's how it works, is it evolves. We can see it happening. There's a study done about these mosquitoes that were trapped on the subway system for years. They actually evolved. They actually changed. They were different subspecies of mosquitoes. We can see it actually happening. So the whole slime thing, it's weird. There's a whole bunch of weird stuff when it comes to evolution. But when you look at the facts and the science behind it, it kind of makes sense. It makes more sense than some invisible man speaking things into existence, to me. And that's where I'm at. And we can disagree 100%, and I'm okay with that. I just, that's where I stand.
And the wonderful thing about being an American, which we both happen to be, is we are in a position that you and I could both disagree and be polar opposites on any topic. And that does not mean that we think less of an individual or that we have to alienate them. We still have the opportunity to still work together on the things that we can agree on, and the things we disagree. We may never be able to change someone's opinion over to our own. But we can also have the ability to make our own choices, and then to also coexist with each other if we choose to.
Of course. But we can also do that in Canada. We can do that in Australia. There's all kinds of places we can do that in, not just America. I mean, America's cool and all, but there's other countries out there that have the same thing, same kind of freedoms.
Not all countries have.
No, of course not all countries, but there's a lot of them. Great Britain, you've got Spain, you've got all these different places we can talk and discuss different topics. There's very few actually that you can't do that kind of thing. America's cool and all, but it's definitely not the best in the world. We all have the same kind of freedoms, for sure. So back to why you believe it. The relationship part, that is always my favorite topic. How do you know you have a relationship with this God?
I believe that I have a relationship. I have seen things and felt things manifest that without a higher power intervention, whether you call it Yahweh, God, or you call it the power of the universe, that has been true for me. That may not be true for someone else, but that doesn't lessen the fact that it is true for me.
Not at all. I can't, go back and forth with your personal experiences. Those are your personal experiences. I haven't had them. I've yet to see it. And this God that does he want to have a relationship with me as well? Is he out there seeking a relationship with me?
I believe that that is true. And I think some people, again, this is an opinion. This is what you and I have at this point.
Yeah.
I think there are individuals who, some will call it a conscience, or
Jiminy Cricket.
they will call it, feeling or something else. And that does not mean that it isn't a part of you, or that there is a missing. But you can go even deeper on that and say, well, then you can get into the conversations of, well, you are a living being. Well, does a living being have a soul? Does it have a spirit? Things that you cannot see. Does a dog and a cat have those type of things? So there are so many different layers and facets there, depending upon what you have been taught. And I will also say what you have received, because you can have different teachers, and we all went through school. You can have different teachers that you were just not able to receive from whatever reason.
It's so true.
All I got to say to some of you is calculus.
Ew, gross. That's a bad word on this show. You know what?
Yeah. So, and again, and no one has walked in your life to feel every experience, to get every bit of teaching that you have had, to have ever learning. And those things, I think, also shape how a person develops their beliefs and their experiences. If you were raised like an alley cat because you had parents, for whatever reason, that were not capable of being parents, and you lived on the streets or whatever, you are going to have a very different perspective of the world and the people and the resources within it than someone who did not have that experience. Maybe they grew up on a farm in Iowa, and there was food was plentiful, and we had 87 cousins, and the life dynamics, I think, can also have a tremendous amount of how a faith or a belief comes to be in a person.
Who controls those dynamics? Does Yahweh control your life? He set things in motion. Does he do the steps for you? Either way, I fail to see the point and as to why he would refuse to contact me for a relationship, because I was brought up differently. No. I think you also have to want to have a relationship. Just because you call, all right, you're in the wilderness. You're in the wilderness and you call out. Did you still call out, or did you not call out because nobody heard you? Well, I was there calling out, so I would know I was calling out.
And with that, there is also, I think, you don't always get instantaneous answers.
100%.
Some people do.
Nobody's still
Some
gotten
people
any
get, very
verbal.
quick, but not everybody. When it comes to healing, or this, I will joke, this is on, oh God, if you will just make so-and-so my spouse, this is okay, well.
Yeah, but I'm talking like little more serious prayers, like, save my child from suffering before he dies, stop this priest from raping me, prayers that we actually hear that don't get answered. And those are the kinds of prayers that really show me that there's not a loving God, that there's not this guy who wants to have a relationship with people. And as far as me not trying hard enough, I definitely tried pretty hard when I was younger. I grew up in the church. I was there for all of this stuff. I went up to get prayed for. I never felt anything other than the tingly feeling you get when you hear your favorite band or see your favorite movie. And I can't distinguish a tingly feeling to automatically be, oh, it's God. God's sending me tingles. Well, why doesn't God send himself down to talk to me, to show me that he wants to have a relationship with me? And the kind of relationship that I've seen Christians have, no offense, is not the kind of relationship I would even call a relationship. Me and my wife, if she didn't talk back to me and I just did all the talking and she worked in mysterious ways, I wouldn't call that a relationship. If I never showed up to my kids' birthday parties, I wouldn't call that a relationship.
Well, that is also going back to some of your experiences and what you have received, what you have been taught, what you have been exposed to, which goes back to the differences. And I'm not saying where your parents took you was right or was wrong, but you are a sum of all of those experiences. I've gone to, over my lifespan, because of different circumstances and living in different places, I have had teaching from a variety of different ones. And as I said, some you receive more, you don't. But as far as going back, and I'm going to go back on something that you keep bringing up, you probably would not know that one of my children is deceased. My child died not long after birth. No, that was nothing I ever prayed for. I never asked for. What it is, something that, life and death are something that you will have in this lifetime. No one has promised a certain amount. Yeah. However, with that, it grew me in a different way, that I had an entirely different appreciation for life and for children.
So the kid had to die so you can get a better appreciation for life? Amy, come on. That's so terrible.
I don't know. So I don't take it for granted. If you knew me and you followed, I'd go into a different, even the grocery store, and say, oh, that's a beautiful baby. You are blessed. Not everybody got a baby this year, which is true. It's true. There's a lot of
God killed your kid
when I
to
say
teach you
you
a
are the
lesson?
sum of your experiences.
Is that what you're saying? That God killed your kid to teach you a lesson?
I never said that. My child had some issues when they were born. Why? We may never know. It was not to teach me a lesson. It was not because I was a bad person. But at this time, there is no one here who lives forever. We have not found them. Life and death occur at different times. For that particular child, their lifespan was very brief. Right now, your and I lifespan has been longer, I'm going to assume, than some of the people you went to school with or people you have known. But life and death, you cannot have life without death. And it is not something you can always control when that happens, and you cannot control how it happens at times or why it happens. All I know is death is always inconvenient. Nobody likes it.
Not always inconvenient. Hitler was pretty convenient.
No,
man, I don't want to offend you, but I kind of want to dive into this a little bit more. Why do you think your kid died?
I believe my child died because there were some medical issues there, and my child was born early. And I can tell you that medical technology has changed a lot since that happened. But well before me, there have been women who didn't do a thing wrong, who their children passed away, whether it was from a stillbirth, miscarriages,
horrible things, lots
fires,
of
floods. So fires, floods, cougars, you name it. It's not anything that was unique, but we are blessed in this society in that we don't see the death of children as often as they had in prior generations.
Canada or Australia. Could Jesus have saved these kids? Your kids specifically?
I believe that there are people at times that appear to us to have been saved, and people will often say that, oh, well, they hadn't completed their mission, whatever their mission in life was. I'm not in charge of passing out missions. But on the other side of it, what kind of a chaos would there be if certain groups of people, call them Christians, call them God ones, whatever, a certain group of people would never die, would never suffer any kind of calamity? How would that work?
I'm talking about these kids suffering. Number one, if I was God, kids would be immune to cancer right off the bat. That's just a no-brainer. I'm a loving God. I'm going to make kids immune to cancer. I mean, duh.
Duh. Come on. But shouldn't kids also be immune from hunger?
No, that's how you know if you need to eat. That's called listen to your body. There's a song like we sing to the kids. Listen to your body. It's time to go potty. Same thing with your hunger.
I never heard that one.
You never heard that one? Oh, it's a good one. It's a good stuck in my head for years. No. It never worked though. That's the problem. Yeah. But you listen to your body. That's one of the things. You're just listening to your body. But to cause a child to suffer and then die. I mean, Yahweh does it in the Bible.
Why do you believe? Mm-hmm. Okay, but let's go back up. So you believe God kills kids?
No, I don't. But most Christians believe that
Well, you
God's in
just said that
control.
he made
And
us
if God is in
suffer.
control, then he's the one that, well, he did in the Bible. He allowed kids to suffer. So if he's allowing kids to suffer in the Bible, I'm guessing he's going to allow kids to do it in real life, according to the Christian mythology. So if he is in control and he's this all-loving person, you have a relationship, why would he allow that to happen?
I'm just curious. Who is the destroyer?
Well, let's see. Yahweh's going to destroy everything at the end. Yahweh destroyed everything in the flood. Yahweh destroys kids when his parents disobey. Yahweh destroys the earth. Yahweh's the destroyer.
Okay, so you don't believe that there is evil in the world that is from anywhere but God. So Satan.
No, I don't believe in God at all.
Lucifer,
I don't believe in Satan
Beelzebub.
either. I don't think that any of that stuff happens. But when I read this book, I see all the destruction that Yahweh causes, even especially in the end. Oh my God, the end is such a so much destruction and death, pointless destruction and death, and turn everything to blood so you can't drink it. I mean, there's just so much things. But yes, 100%.
But isn't there also, but wasn't there an alternative?
What's the alternative?
Isn't the alternative that you
become a slave of
salvation?
God. Become God's
Salvation.
slaves. I don't want to be God's slave. No, thank you.
Well, that's a personal choice. I can have individuals who will say that they don't want to be a slave to their job. They don't want to be a slave.
Then don't
to
change your
this and
job.
that, and it's
Change
a
your job
choice.
to someplace you actually enjoy working. I did that. It's awesome. It's really just life-changing. It won't be a slave to a job anymore. You'll be actually contributing and helping out to a position. So yes, if you are unhappy in your job and you feel it's a slave, change your job, please.
All right, but what if you're a slave to alcohol?
That's called addiction.
What if you're a slave to
things that'll help with that.
Nicotine type products?
Same thing.
What if you're a slave to drugs?
Same thing. We have issues. There's an issue. You're a slave to something. We can fix that. But why would you want to be a slave to a documented child killer? That to me is beyond me. I will never understand that. It doesn't make sense.
Well,
but you have a relationship with him. That's even weirder for me.
Then you may decide to reject that. And that is an option that you have within your life in order to accept or reject things. Yes. I don't see God as only a child killer. I don't see God as only a destroyer, because in the same book that you are holding, there were also great signs of mercy and healing and giving. Was it to everyone? No. Oh, he's grinning. He can't.
I love
wait.
it. No, I love it. You love it. You touch on things, I get all excited. No, for sure. Mercy and grace from what he's going to do to you because you've done things to make him mad. And a lot of things make him mad. Even picking up sticks on the Sunday makes him mad. Lots of different things, little things for no reason. We've got death penalties along with some of these. Curse your parents, and he wants you to be stoned to death. Jesus reiterates that in the New Testament. There's just lots of things in there, and the good does not outweigh the bad. And for me, when you tell me that this is his book, not him writing it, he wrote it through people, but this is his autobiography. Things he's done is in here. And when you tell me that you've killed kids out of jealousy, I'm not going to praise and worship you. I don't care how many cool things you did afterwards. If you cured cancer, I don't care. You drowned kids out of jealousy. You starved kids out of jealousy. You slaughtered kids out of jealousy. I can't get behind somebody who does that. I don't care how many good things you did afterwards. And that's where I draw the line. And then he demands bloodshed for forgiveness. That's terrible. There's no good in that. That's not love. That's not a good father figure. I can't forgive you unless something dies. Oh.
And there is the Old Testament and there is the New Testament.
Right. It doesn't get any better in the New Testament.
If you look back at the time after the New Testament, there was none of the sacrifices that were given.
Jesus was the sacrifice.
And I was finishing that after Christ died. That was no longer done at that point. So, and I don't know what has, I don't know what all has occurred in your life, but you are entitled to your beliefs, like I am entitled to your beliefs. But the only thing that is in the Bible is not just that one particular point.
No,
and
there's a lot.
I don't have to like history, and neither do you, but it doesn't mean that history did not occur. And as you're saying that, we are still living it.
But it doesn't make sense to me, though. Number one, you got somebody who says he's all love, but he needs bloodshed to forgive you. That's not loving. And then the animals aren't enough for him, so he has to create the perfect blood of himself in order to sacrifice it to himself in order to not be pissed off at humankind for being who he made them to be. It's nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's so weird.
That is your interpretation, and if that is all that you can receive, you will not be able to see or receive anything else. And that goes back to the difference between you and I. It doesn't mean I do not I don't have to agree, I don't have to like the different things, but I'm going to go back to my life experiences. And no, I have not been sheltered from absolutely everything. But I do not believe that we do this alone. I believe there is a higher power. And for me and for others who believe like I do, that is a faith walk we have chosen. Now, there are others who will choose not to, but that goes back again to their choice.
Right, my choice. Not. And do you believe he slaughtered kids? Do you believe that happened?
I believe men slaughtered kids. If you go back
flood.
and
Let's
you
go to
will
the flood.
discover who was holding the swords and was doing and throwing kids to crocodiles. This was not, God didn't show up and say, bring them on over. Let's bring them all over.
I don't know what that means.
We're going to take them.
But did the flood
bring
happen?
them on over.
Did the flood happen?
I believe that the flood happened, and other cultures
Passover.
have
Do you think the
referenced that there
Passover
was a
happened?
flood.
These are all instances where Yahweh himself came down and caused the death of kids. Hosea 9, he causes the slaughtering, the starving of children because their parents worship the wrong God. I'm not talking about men killing kids. I'm talking not even God ordering men to kill kids, because that happens a lot in the Bible as well. I'm talking about when Yahweh himself steps in and slaughters kids. David and Bathsheba's kid, he struck it with a sickness for 7 days and then it died. He caused that sickness. These are instances where he did it, not a person. So do you believe these things happened and that Yahweh was responsible for it?
I believe that those things happened that have been written down. Now, the question goes back to when we very began this deal. You are seeing what has been passed down. Are you seeing the entire part of history, or are you seeing what has been presented to you?
Then how do you know any of it's
now,
true?
Whether God chose to, Yahweh, God, whatever you want to call it, or the the figurehead, whether they chose to do that, but at the same time, if that was your intent, was only to kill and destroy, then why do we allow life to continue at all?
Great point.
Where's
He didn't
the
wipe
hope
out evil.
there?
It's still here. After the flood, evil still exists, apparently.
But isn't evil also that they can say evil is in the hearts of men?
So
Because
why
you look
did he even
around at
bother
what the
wiping
hearts of
everybody
men
out?
are capable of now.
Why bother wiping everybody out if they're just going to continue being evil anyways? Yeah, lots of things that don't make sense in there, and I still don't understand how you decipher which parts are real and which parts aren't. I guess to me it seems like the parts you like are the real parts, and the parts you dislike, you find a way around them. But that's just my opinion. Again, just my opinion. But
and isn't it great that you can have one that even it differs from mine? Isn't that wonderful?
It is wonderful. We live in a world where we can do that. Lots of places we can do that. I could be in Italy, Spain, and we can still do this. Very cool. Thank you so much for your time. Let's plug your stuff. Where can we find you at?
Well, you can find me, and I can just send it over in the show notes if you'd like me to do that, because I am believing most of you are listening and you're not taking pieces of paper while you're driving or you're working on it. So I'll send you a couple of things to put in the show notes.
Of course. Thank you.
All right with you?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
That works.
We'll do it that way.
So but throw it on here too, just in case somebody does have a piece of paper.
Oh, they do it. You can find me at thesecretprophets.com. That is my business where I have other things available. And if you go on Amazon.com and you put in my name, Amy Rose Herrick, then you'll be able to see the books that are there. And I have others that I will be relaunching and putting back up here in the next couple of months, depending upon when this is aired, but there will be things up on Amazon.
Super cool. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your patience and your answers. Take care, and we'll keep in touch.
And be blessed no matter what you do.
Thanks. all the show there is for you today. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and want to help keep the recording light on, simply go to patreon.com/BSW the podcast and sign up to be a supporter of the show. Your episodic tithes of $1 or more will give you access to the patron feed, unaired conversations, early access to each episode, and much more. For the latest events, BSW swag, and a peek behind the scenes, head on over to the show's ever-evolving webpage at thebiblesayswhat.com. The Bible Says What the book is out. Head on over to thebiblesayswhat.com and get yourself and your grandma a signed copy. Thanks to the cosmic powers of the internet, it is now possible to buy me a beer or coffee online. Simply go to buymeacoffee.com/BSW the podcast and click the appropriate buttons. If you can't support the show monetarily, please like, share, and or leave a review. As always, you can find me at the Bible Says What Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram pages. You can also reach me at bswthepodcast@gmail.com. And no matter which platform you use to listen to your podcasts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next episode. Until then, would you kindly pick up your Bibles and read them? Today's special guest is the host of the Real Men Connect podcast, and certified builder of men, Joe Martin. Welcome to the show, Joe. What do you know, Joe? My flowers won't grow. Did you try a hoe? How about a mow? That's an old McDonald's commercial. Uh-huh. You don't remember that?